He snuck me in his parents' house one time, and I came out the next morning like da 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 da, not realizing that that was like, no, we don't do that. I'm Tanaya.
And I'm Peter.
And this is the
Vangs.
Vangs. Today we wanted to come with a more serious conversation about interracial dating. And I guess basically giving the truth on what happens during interracial dating and like what to expect, or at least what we've grown to learn in the 7.5 years we've been dating. With interracial dating, in general, we started dating. We kind of hopped into dating almost right away. I think maybe a few weeks after we started talking. Let me give you my perspective. I didn't know what to expect because I had never dated a Hmong person before, an Asian person, period. Now, I was interested in Asian folks back then because I don't really discriminate on race. Like, if you're cute and we find each other attractive, okay. The thing is, in high school, you're very attractive. High school, I was around a lot of Hmong folks. I did not know it would be a big deal per se. We didn't know much about Asian folks. We knew about Chinese, and we knew about Vietnamese,
Koreans.
Not really. We didn't really know about Koreans.
Oh, okay.
And only because of the martial arts movies and stuff we got from China and with the news. But like when Peter brought me home, he did not introduce me properly to his parents. He actually just brought me into the house. Spoke in Hmong the whole entire time. And then I'm over here thinking that this was his sister. I never knew it was his mom. And so, bad introduction from the get. So I didn't figure it out until after we left. Peter finally told me that that was his mom. What? I got hair. Do I got hair on my nose?
Yeah.
Really?
There is a whole bunch of hair in there.
Not my natural nose hair is like...
So, my mom is first generation here. Second generation?
Because your granddad's the first. Your granddad's first, your mom's second, you're third.
Oh, yeah, that's right. A week before, I told my mom, I'm like, hey, how would you feel if I dated a black chick? And I don't remember what her words for word was, but I remember her telling me, like, I hope you're joking with me. In our culture, when we bring someone home, it means you're bringing your wife home.
I'm gonna let y'all know, Peter knew all these rules, did not lay none of them out.
And there's a lot of the cultures where I don't agree with and follow to, so hear me out. I bring her home to kind of introduce her to my mom.
Not in English. She speaks perfect English. He did everything in Hmong. That's how you knew he was sneaking.
Yeah, my mom does speak perfect English. So I said, hey mom, I brought my girlfriend home. There's right here. I step this way, and then here goes her head. This is my mom's face. She saw Tanaya's face. She was just like...
I think that with me being ignorant to your cultural values and your cultural traditions, I think I went in so blind, not expecting to get any type of backlash, because I'm like, what's the big deal? I wish I would have known, and I wish you would have been more honest with me back then how it is. Did you feel like you knew that's how it was going to be? Peter's a rebel, and he knows that if you don't like something that he does, he's going to do it anyway, and then rub it in your face even more.
I'm the oldest out of 5 kids, and I've always been the black sheep of the family, so I guess I didn't really think about it. I was just happy to get a girlfriend. She was my first girlfriend, so the first one I brought home. So,
she's the only one that matters.
I guess the culture kind of just went out the door because I didn't think about it because I was like,
we were head over heels.
Yeah, but I was in love with this person and I was like, the whole day was a bit awkward. I cringe a lot when I think about how ignorant I used to be. Me as a Hmong person, I grew up watching, like the black culture, and I always love the black culture because I've always found it to be like so amazing. I love everything about it. I grew up listening to a lot of hip hop, so
stereotypical black stuff basically.
So
everything's stereotypical black.
So this is how ignorant I was. The N-word used to be in my vocab. The 2 N-words. One of them is the one that ends in ER, and the other one is the one that ends in an A. Now, if you don't know what they are, you should probably do your research, but I'm not going to say them. So it used to be in my vocab. So when we first started dating, me and my family would always, it was just in our regular vocab because we use it every single day. So,
well, here's the thing. When I was around, and he's not talking about his immediate family, he's talking about cousins and stuff. When I was around, everyone was pretty much just drinking, and no one would do it while they were sober. It was when everybody was drunk
and they
that
started
the
getting
ER
comfortable.
would come out. And they wouldn't call me one, but they would say the word, just happenstance, just like in mid-conversation.
Right. I didn't think the word was that bad. I mean, I knew the meaning behind it and the history behind it, but like when it's in your every single day vocab and you don't realize how much power that word has, you don't realize the effect it takes on people.
That's because the people that are using it have never been affected by that word.
Right.
And so with them, they never had all their history behind this one word. Like their ancestors weren't dying while being called this word. They weren't enslaved while being called this word. Like none of that mattered to them and him because it didn't personally affect them. And I think that's why a lot of people still use the word that aren't Black. And I honestly don't even like Black folks using it. But
so it's completely out of our vocab. Like
it's completely out of our vocab. I feel and I felt that at the time I didn't say much because I was in a very dark space.
And you were also trying very hard to be accepted into...
I was trying very hard to be accepted. I felt there's had been some stuff that happened to me prior to Peter and I dating.
Right.
And I was trying to find my way into who I was again. And I think I was still trying to fit into certain spaces. And with his family, some of his family, the cousins mainly, I felt like super accepted and I didn't want to lose that.
Which you were accepted.
Which I was accepted. But it was kind of hard because I'm like, well, if I can keep these people that accept me for who they know I am right now, then I'll be okay. I won't feel so lonely, yada, yada, yada. So when I would hear the words, like, you hear it and then you hear the people that noticed I was in the room and be like...
They would look at you.
They'd be like, oh, I'm sorry. Or they'll call out Peter for saying it. Like, oh, he said yada, yada. And it's like, okay. I didn't hear it, but he's going to have a little talking to later.
Right.
But some of the people that would say it and be like, what? That's just my vocabulary. And it'd be like, for real, dude?
Or it's just how we talk.
It's just how we talk. And then you have wives defending that. And then you have people defending this word. And so I think that a part of me disconnected from Peter back then.
Right.
And because there was just this social norm that they had built around the word that tormented my people. So it was really hard for me to stay in connection with Peter. And at that time, we were serious, but I think you and I at that time were still trying to figure out what we were, even though we were technically boyfriend and girlfriend.
That's one of the things that I kind of wish I would have took a little bit more seriously before getting into this biracial relationship, because I've never really been in a serious relationship. This was like my first serious relationship. So, you know, it was a lot of learning for me to do. And I was also very ignorant. So
I say that the number one thing for people to know when you're getting into an interracial relationship, especially when it's two very strong cultures, educate yourself. If you don't know, then talk to the person you're trying to date. And if you guys are friends, it's even better because y'all can educate before jumping into anything. Right. I think for me, I was very ignorant on your cultural traditions. Not necessarily that I wasn't using like words that were like, oh my gosh, that's forbidden or anything. I just didn't know that bringing me home meant you're marrying me. Or spending the night in your house was not looked good upon because I've never dated Asian before.
So coming from a culture where the culture rules and everything, traditions are very high. I would say that you have to be able to cut down your tradition and have to kind of be on the same page with your partner. Otherwise,
it depends. It depends on if your partner wants to join that tradition or not.
Yeah, you have to give your partner that option too and be like, hey, are you comfortable with this? Because if you're not, then chances are you're going to do what we did. We bump heads.
Here's the thing. What I think why you have to make sure you have those conversations. Number two, be open and honest.
Right.
Because Peter and I never had those conversations on what we wanted. What I got from Peter was he didn't care about tradition So he never educated me on it. So I'm like, well, then I don't have to follow tradition. But it was so ingrained in his system that he was still doing traditional things out of actions and then getting upset that I didn't know them. And I think that's why we bumped heads, because I'm like, well, why would I do that? Why do I got to come in? Why do I got? And it was just, he wanted to not be a part of it, but his blood was part of it.
I realized I was doing it. There were certain things that I wouldn't do, but there was also a lot of things where I was like, you had to call me out on it multiple times. And finally I was like, yo, this tradition is running through my blood. It's about that just open conversation and be like, yo, I don't like this. I don't like doing this, you know. Now I don't have an issue with, like, if we go over to family house and, like, I don't expect you to go in the kitchen, because in our culture, women automatically have to go into the kitchen.
So here's the thing. Peter was coming at me like I was a Hmong woman, and I just had learned all of this culture in 1 week.
See, I didn't realize I was doing that, though.
He didn't realize he was doing it, but it's the expectation that he's been brought up to learn,
right,
that he just automatically expected out of me.
So I would used to
he would get upset that I was not in the kitchen with the ladies, and I'd be like, I asked them if they needed help. They said no, so I'm over here. And he wouldn't believe me. So he would think, it was almost like he felt like I was disrespecting tradition.
It's not that. I just felt like, you know, like, just do it, even if they said no.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't even know what they're cooking. Well, I'm gonna go in there and just chop up onions, like, and then all of a sudden the whole thing's wrong.
They're gonna critique you like,
they're gonna critique the heck out of me, and then it's gonna be like, don't let her in the kitchen no more.
Yeah, in my culture, you know, the woman has to do most of the cooking. You know, like, the guys are like, I don't know, if we butcher an animal, the guys would cut up the meat and butcher it, but
then we're cooking it.
Yeah, the women are doing everything, setting up tables and everything, which I don't agree with anymore. I think men should be taking part in that too.
I want to be very clear. We're not coming at the Hmong culture community in a whole, because I know from my own personal experiences that there are a lot of Hmong folks that do not follow the patriarchal tradition. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of Hmong folks who are open to interracial dating. Right. There's a lot. There's a bunch, but you always know that the negative ones overshadow the positive ones. So for majority of our relationship, I kid you not, we had a lot of negative.
Yeah, we had.
It was rare positivity, and if it was positive, it was only from the folks we were with daily, every week.
Or like most of the younger generation some of them would be like, okay, cool, but you do still have some.
No, because it's like okay, cool, not my problem.
Right.
But then you have the ones that I never got asked this question so many times in my life, but it's always, what do his parents think? Every time, like, they would ask who I was dating or something like that, and they found out they're Hmong, not just Asian, but Hmong, they'd be like, okay, so what does his parents think?
Because if the parents don't agree with the person you're dating, then you can't date that person at all.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, I don't know. Because at the time I really didn't know that. Well, I did, but it wasn't their business to know.
My parents didn't agree with me dating Tanaya.
I think that just like Peter, the tradition was so ingrained in their minds that because I knew none of it, I looked like I was disrespecting the culture.
Right.
But in reality, I was not educated on it, so I didn't know what was supposed to be done.
Right.
I probably wouldn't have done it anyway, because usually I only do what I feel is right to do, and I wouldn't do it just because it's tradition.
Right. Parents weren't educated enough to understand the American
Black.
They weren't trained to understand the Black tradition, so, you know, of course, it was always their tradition trumps over everything. Instead, it should have been like in a middle ground, which took us, what, 7 years?
6.5.
6.5 years.
The thing is with that, with the Black culture, like we have a lot of similarities in culture.
Yeah.
Ours just isn't as strong because individual families do different things.
Yeah.
But for the most part, like, you know, respecting your elders, you know, you walk into a house and you say hi to everybody, or just stuff like that. And if you have a problem, you speak on it, like stuff like that. It was really hard trying to mingle my Black culture into the Hmong culture, because in the Hmong culture, it's frowned upon to be speaking to the person you're upset with.
Especially
about the thing you're upset about.
Because women don't speak to men like that unless you just happen to be in a relationship or...
Yeah. And it was really hard for me when, like, all the men are shaking hands, but then they don't shake my hand and I'm standing there and I'm like...
Yeah, so the men don't even have conversation with the women, and if they do, it's very short.
Traditionally. Now, you have a younger generation that still does traditional stuff, But like if you have that kind of relationship where you have conversations,
where y'all can actually talk,
they're gonna talk to you. They're gonna sometimes. Oh my gosh, the first time I hugged one of his cousins, it was like I killed somebody's baby, and it was like
you guys had that relationship.
Yeah,
and I was cool with it because
I'm like, what? Am I gonna steal him? I'm confused. This is my cousin too, right? What?
See, I didn't have a problem with that because I knew who he was and I knew he wasn't going to do that. So I didn't have a problem with that. And I wasn't
going to do that.
Right. So, I mean, especially with the one that you hugged, that dude's a sweetheart. So I knew.
Well, both of them. The brothers.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I want everybody to know that when you're in these relationships, you have to have those conversations or else, and build that foundation with each other.
Oh, yeah.
Or else everything's going to crumble you. And we got crumbled. When I first started dating him, I was going to all the events, the funerals, the onangs, the
family gathering,
every family gathering, all the weddings, and not knowing that I would be mad dogged. You and I got stared at all the time when it came to
we
everything.
Still get stared at.
We still get stared at, but we have built more of a tolerance to it.
Yeah, that was in the early stage. Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, in the earlier stages, when we weren't prepared for that, I felt so judged and honestly I felt almost like I could not be affectionate with my own partner.
Yeah.
Because I felt like there was so many, I can't say I felt like there was a lot of eyes. There were a lot of eyes on us.
Because you don't see Asian guys with black women. You see the other way around. You see a lot of black guys with Asian women, but you never see an Asian guy with a black woman. So when you do see it,
especially my skin tone,
it's unique and it's like it's rare, you know. It's like, whoa, that's different. And a lot of times it is more curiosity than
he says that, but the looks, I'm telling you, they would kill. Like, how dare you come here? That is the looks we used to get, and I used to try to tell
at my family events. Or just in public, period?
The public events that we would go to, weddings, funerals, where there's like multiple people that we don't know there.
Okay.
Those events. And honestly, it made me feel very self-conscious. Like, I was very particular. Like, I didn't grab too much food because I'm like, they're probably watching how much I eat. Like, I was very self-conscious. And Peter, sometimes in the beginning, he wouldn't understand that you can't leave me by myself and go hang with the guys and leave me with women. Because it was a very uncomfortable space to be in.
Yeah, I had a habit of doing that, like...
Because he, like I said, tradition was ingrained in him.
Yeah, so
the men go with the men, the women go with the women.
Right, and a lot of times it would be just me leaving you in the middle. Like you were in the center and everyone was around you just staring at you too.
Later on, I started mad dogging people back. Like
we both were dogging people. Just or like when people would look at us, we would purposely just look back at them together as a couple.
And be like, you see that?
We would point at them. For the staring, I would say, you know, honestly, it's a hard one to touch on because like, you're gonna get it no matter what you do, and you can retaliate, but at the end of the day, is it really worth it? You know, it's just expect it, and just start building like an armor around it, you know, to be like, hey, look, we know we're gonna get stared at, and it's cool.
I remember there were a few times where we had to prepare ourselves to go out.
Yeah. Into
like Hmong spaces to be like, okay, we're going to go here, you know, I got you, you got me. And I think that's what really helped. I think that was after a conversation we had, actually.
Yeah.
And I think us doing that and putting on that armor and praying and stuff like that, that really helped us get through the gawking of us.
Now it's like when I would go to family events, you know, especially family that aren't as close to us, I'll be like, hey, I'm going to, you know, so-and-so's house this week. I'm like, you met them like once or twice. I'm like, do you want to go? And I give her the option now. She says no. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'll be gone for like a few hours.
Before when I would say no, it was like I shot him and his dog. Like, it was so sad because they're always going to be asking, where's Tanaya? Where's your wife? So
traditionally wise, you know, it wouldn't be right for the husband to show up or the guy to show up without the woman.
Without a plausible excuse.
They would have to show up together.
So me sitting at home watching Friends was not a plausible excuse.
Right. So now I have given her, you know, that respect because I'm like, For one, I don't want her to go through that BS. And two, I would never want anyone to go through that because it's not fair on them.
And it took a lot for people. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
You said in 3.
In 3, I wasn't trying to fight everyone.
But there have been times where I'd be with Peter, like, we're probably grabbing something at his parents' house or something, and a neighbor came. And
so from Tanaya's end, it's always, ooh, have you met her parents? From my end, this is how it is. So I see that your partner is black. I'm like, yeah, what of it? Because, I'm kind of a smart ass. And the questions I would get asked was, does she know how to wash pots and pans? Does she know how to cook? Does she know how to make rice?
Does she love you?
Does she love you? When my neighbor said that, and I said, this is what I said back to him. I was like, yeah, of course, just like how your wife loves you, right?
No matter. We're the ones dating each other. So why do people care? That there's a fear that the Hmong traditions and culture is going to be lost by dating someone outside. And
not true, by the way.
And it's not true if you're both willing to instill those traditions, because now our children are going to know black and Hmong.
Yep, and we're going to
know both.
And we're going to educate them on both sides, the beauty and the bads of both sides, so they know that they are Hmong and black. Because I would hate for them to be like, oh, I like my Asian side better than my black side, or I like my black side better than my Asian side.
They're gonna like, I think, the side that accepts them the most.
Yeah,
so
of course.
We have to make sure that we're surrounding them with all the love. No, we don't have kids yet. No, I'm not pregnant.
The fact that my dad's very traditional, like traditional throughout his blood, very...
But he was always 100% honest about how he felt.
He was always upfront, though.
And he said it in Hmong, but said it.
He's a man who speaks very little, and when he does speak, it's straight to the point. And then you have my mom, who's a little bit more Americanized, but still very traditional too. My biggest struggle in our relationship was my parents, because for the longest time I would always say, like, oh, I always choose you over my parents, and then eventually I go back to my parents because, those are my parents.
Maybe like I choose my parents over you.
They raised me, they made me, so...
And that was the crumbling of our relationship.
Sometimes it's okay to do things for yourself, because I forgot that it was okay to make sure I'm happy. That really messed with my head, because when we would have conversation, I would be on your side. But then when I would go back to my parents and have this, we call it the talk.
Yeah.
We call it the talk. Try to have the talk with them, be like, you know what? You guys are right. They're speaking from like a loving point of view for me, but not for so much for us, so I would get my head wrapped up and I'd be like, yo, parents, you guys are right. And I would come back and then I would be a completely different person.
When you're in a relationship, you cannot ride the fence.
Yeah. Because
you either stand for your partner or you stand for your parents. There can be a medium.
Right.
But when it comes to stuff that you guys have talked about personally, you have to know where you stand.
To me, it was tough. I was stressing out. There were days where I wouldn't even be there, and like Tanaya would try to talk to me, and I would just look down. I would just be like, yo, I don't even want to, like, I can't even think because I was so numb. Like, I was depressed as hell. Like, I didn't even know what the hell to do. I was just like...
That, and you had that job. That just didn't help.
I was already in a depression stage. On top of that, I had my relationship and my parents that I was trying to go in between.
But when it comes to picking sides, know that sometimes your parents will try to make it seem like you don't love them because you're choosing your partner over whatever. But if your parents are being ignorant in a sense and they're uneducated and they're basically trying to control your life. Now, if they don't like the person for the person, completely different story. But if they don't like the person because they don't, they're not of the same race, then you need to figure out what you're willing to deal with and tolerate. And in our case, I needed Peter to stand on my side on a lot of things when it came to the race, because we knew the real issue. It was never my personality. It was never any of that. We knew the real issue. The good news is 6.5 years later, we prayed like crazy during a breakup, mind you.
Some dark time.
We broke up for almost a year, roughly about 6 months, because it came to the point where I would come home from work and I'd go straight into the bedroom. We didn't talk for months, but there was still a connection there that we had that we really couldn't erase. Like, we tried to find it in other things,
because that was like 6 strong, solid years that we put in.
Solid, yeah, right. We did not have a good foundation. We were engaged, for 2 years. because it got worse and worse and worse because we weren't seeing what we needed to do for ourselves and for each other. And all we saw was the bad. That's the one thing I do love about you. Even when he's pissed at me, he will still make me food and make sure I'm eating. I am not that way. Once we like broke up,
that's when we both got really close to God. We got our stuff in check. You know, everything was going well for us, and then we had a serious conversation. You know, like if we was to do this again, this is what's gonna happen. We laid a foundation for ourselves. We set boundaries, and we're like, okay, we're not gonna do this. We're not gonna do this. The talk was the biggest one for us. I've been struggling trying to talk to my parents too because it's been going back and forth for 6 years. So finally, I was like, you know what? I pulled my parents to the side. It's been 6 years arguing with you. I'm done with it. I'm letting you know that I'm choosing Tanaya, and it's either you accept us for who we are or I'm out the door. We weren't even together. Yeah, we needed to have closure regardless whether we went our own ways or not, because you know I couldn't do that to her. So
it was 6 years of pent up everything. So everything that we discussed was literally from day one of us going out and meeting. We realized that we are not so different.
The talk actually went way better than any of it. It turned out really well. You know, we started off, it was palms sweaty, you know, almost threw up mom's spaghetti, and at the end
say an Eminem verse.
Yes. Did we set boundaries? I don't really remember.
Your dad set boundaries.
Okay, my dad set boundaries.
You have to have these conversations, open and honest with your parents,
and
you have to keep trying, because eventually you'll get through it. I say prayer was the biggest thing that we needed, and the biggest thing that we failed to do on a lot of this.
I wish I would have, you know, warned my parents and then be like, hey, look, you know, this is who she is. This is what they do. Like, I wish I would have educated them before I brought her in. I wish I would have educated her on my culture. You have to educate yourself, too, and what you're getting yourself into. Because don't do what I did. I went in blind because I was like...
And also, there weren't a lot of Asian men, Black women relationships.
Yeah.
And especially when we started dating, there were not a lot. And we didn't have that community where there were so many Blasian couples that went through the same thing.
Right. So what's beautiful with the Hmong culture is obviously our colors are gorgeous. And one thing that's always stood out to me was family gathering events, because we throw crazy family gathering events. And we come together and we celebrate everything, and we celebrate the beauty of just being together. That, and you know, like I said, everything we do is very family tough.
You guys don't do daycare, stuff like that usually.
Yep, because you have family members
that take care of the kids. It's a whole village literally helps with.
Yep. And then let's say we don't have much.
Why is this pillow up here?
I was just wondering that. Let's say that we don't have much. You know, we divide what we have a little bit. Let's say we just have like a small bowl of rice in the house. That's all we can afford. We divide that equally so that everyone...
I just want to say about food. Okay, food, my favorite part of Hmong culture.
Hold on. So, and the beauty of it is when we do family gatherings, like we make enough food to feed a village. And this is no lie too. So, like let's say you're coming into the family. We're like, yo, have you eaten yet? Come on, let's hook you up with a plate.
They don't even ask if you've eaten yet. They say, come eat. Hey, come eat. And you're like, I'm full. No, just eat a little bit. And that I had to learn. Because I'm like, of course you're sharing when you're on the same house. I did not know that you go out to restaurants, buy enough for you to share with other folks at the table, and just pass around the plates.
Yep. So,
thank you. Yeah, so look forward to our part 2 next week. We're going to go into the my side of the stories.
Yeah.
Being Black in a Blasian relationship. Okay? I'm Tanaya.
And I'm Peter.
And this is the Vangs. We will see you all next week.
Peace.
Bye.